Hello everybody and welcome to today's FileMaker webinar. My name is Mike Crook. I'm in the marketing team here at FileMaker and I have with me today Kieran Saunders, our FileMaker product specialist.
Hi there.
So in just a few moments, Kieran's going to be getting going with today's webinar, which is all about empowering your mobile users using the FileMaker platform. Before he does that, I'd just like to say if you have any questions during the course of the session, feel free to ask them using the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll do our best to address as many of those as we can towards the end. So that's all you'll hear from me until that question section at the end. So without any further ado, I shall hand over to Kieran to get started. Kieran.
Thanks, Mike. So today we'll be looking at how you can use the FileMaker platform to expand and into a mobile world if you haven't already. So FileMaker has been in business for a long time now, and when we are talking to our customers, this is the kind of things we're hearing from the issues that they're getting. They're finding it very hard to organize projects without coming up against scattered information and all ad hoc processes. So scattered information would be an Excel sheet maybe and an email folder for someone that's on holiday, to ad hoc processes where you've got a team of people doing the same role and exactly the same processes, but they're not. They're doing their own thing that they believe to be the best, and they're trying to do a good job, of course. But there's no tight system to make everyone work in the same way. So the big issues from these two things, of course, is just inefficiency and especially with the ad hoc is potentially you're hitting goals, but you don't know in the next round whether you're going to be hitting them again because you've just got no figures to track against what's going on. So better communication and real-time info. Again, it's very hard to have communication about a project when you're busy spending a day or two collecting that information, and it's impossible to have, of course, real-time info without a system backing the business up. So when it comes to meeting employee demands, I mean, the employees really want the latest devices. They want to be mobile. People are trying to work in a slightly different way where potentially they're not tied to a desk. They've got meetings out in town. They're out on the road, and it's just trying to meet the demands of the modern workforce that a lot of businesses are struggling to do. So mobility, of course, is the answer to a lot of these issues and systems that bring you that mobility to the business. So a recent survey by Citrix found that 91% of people that responded plan to have a mobile strategy, and 82% of those plan to do it by the end of the year. So, of course, mobile solutions are integral to the mobile strategy, and a CIO article pointed to one Appian survey, noting that 7% of respondents plan to equip over 1,000 users with mobile apps, and a third of those planned to deploy 5,000 mobile users by 2016. So, of course, you can look at the challenges that people are having and the investments as well, and you can see that the mobile sort of apps space is right up there in terms of what businesses are looking to invest in the years to come. So, where can FileMaker help you, and where have we gone out and helped businesses like yours? So, of course, FileMaker being a platform, it can help with any sector. It can help a number of tasks that range from project management, customer management, inventory, front-ending of service personnel, feeding back into those back-end systems that you may already have into the accounting and the sales ordering processes. So how does it work? How does our platform sort of help you get there? Well, we've got FileMaker Pro and Pro Advanced that you can download a trial from, and you probably hopefully already have and had a look. So this is the tool that we use to build our custom applications. And from there, you would put that file that it produces onto a server, and that server would then service a number of clients that range across a desktop space, so the back-end staff in your business. FileMaker Go would be on the iOS platform, so your people out on the road or people in the stock room who really want to use an iPad would think it'd be a great benefit. There's a lot of things in there like barcode scanning, signature, that really just out of the box can give you a lot of functionality and a lot of improvements to your customer service and internal systems. And lastly, we've got WebDirect, which is a great tool to all that work that you've put into the file that's gone out to those other clients and also is now available in a browser. So you could have third-party partners coming into some of your data, completing or kicking off a process. You could have maybe employees that are remote around the world, and they could come in via browser to do some work. So there's nowhere that we can't help you in all of those different sort of different environments. So that's a look at some of the case studies, some sort of examples of customers. So we've got a private airline in France that uses FileMaker to manage maintenance and stock for its planes. So actually sort of going in and making sure everything's absolutely correct. We've got Server Bar, which is, of course, a famous hotel guest room refrigerator. So if you go in and get your water in the fridges, especially in America, odds are that it's being managed and controlled by a FileMaker system. We've got a saloon that is in Japan that manages everything from front end via an iPad when people come to the salon, through to back end sort of new customers, unpaid accounts, and sales information. So going out into the field, we've got a world famous Arturo Montero, who's a world famous archaeological, is going out into the field, capturing information around caves and sites that he has to do his work in I think mainly in North America. There's a great little video on our site that will take you through that. We've also got Valley Oxygen, and they're using our systems as a medical sales system for sales reps out on the road. A lovely little dashboard there and keeping them connected to the head office. And lastly, we've got Braun Electric has really improved their job safety around their sites by putting that whole job safety analysis processes, recommendations, and risk assessments into a fantastic mobile solution. So there's just a few examples of what people have done. And just to make this presentation, this demo a little bit more interesting, we're going to be picking a sort of a customer, fictitious customer, and then taking you through their needs. So we've got FileMaker Auto Parts. So they've got reps going out and selling parts to garages and suppliers. They've been doing this with laptops and spreadsheets. So they've had their spreadsheets. They've then had to produce paper quotes, of course, update the spreadsheets, and then email that back to some poor back-end staff who's got to make sure that they're doing that correctly and retyping it all into a back-end system. So they really want to modernize, they want to look professional in front of their customers, and they want to have a good mobile solution. So let's see what we can do for them. So I've got a few resources here on the right hand side. I've got some images of stock. I've got an inventory list, and I've got their logo just to get going. So we're going to open up FileMaker Pro, and we're going to go to File, New Solution. And this will kick us off into an empty file. So let's go ahead and give it a name. So Quote Tool Webinar, just so we know it's unique. And we're going to save that onto the desktop. Okay, well there's the file on the right hand side there, you can see it, so it's save that file to the desktop. So we're going to create a mobile solution to start off with. So let's go off and create a new report, a new layout, a new form for these sales reps. Let's give it a name. So quote detail iPad, so we know which view we're doing, and then you can select what where you're planning to have this form be used, and in this case, of course, it's a touch device on an iPad, and how you want the data to be displayed. And of course, in this case, as it's going to be a quote by quote, we'd like a form type view. So one quote at one time. You could have a nice little navigation list of all the quotes that happened within a time period, within today, let's say. A table view, which is much more like a spreadsheet, just to see the data without any formatting. And then we've got a report there at the end of the day to have a look at some sub summary of data, reports this, quotes this quarter and so on. So let's just go for the quote, and we'll have it in landscape mode. And there you go. We've created a layout. It's of course blank. We've got a couple of parts here. We've got a top navigational part, a body, and a bottom navigational part, so that we can put different things into different sections. Just to highlight the theme that's been put in there, so the look feel of this solution. If I click on that button there, you can see a bit more detail. So because we've chosen iPad to have this form be displayed on, you can see that it's chosen one of the touch themes that it just makes everything a little bit bigger. There's more to it than that. There's font and some other things that go along with it. But the main thing is that, of course, your fingers are a lot bigger than a mouse pointer, so you need to make those touch targets a lot bigger. So that's choosing the right sort of layout, which is great. Let's just drag. We've got a logo here on the side. Let's just put that into the solution to give it a kind of a company look and feel. So we'll stick that over there, which is great. And then we can add some text into here. Let's say our quote tool. Okay, and you can bring down a font menu here. You can make the font, of course, bigger and smaller, change its color, anything you'd like to do. Great. Okay. So let's get some information that we want to capture. So of course, maybe the first thing we want to capture, and I'll open this up again so you know where I'm going, is the Field Picker tool. Field Picker tool is a great little floating window, but it allows us to create new fields, new sort of sections to add our information into our solution. So just add a new field, and the first one we need to create is a ID for this record, for this quote. So you want a unique identifier, of course. We'll call that quote ID. Just get that capital so you can see it. So quote ID, and we can right click on this new field and go into the options. We could just have it given a serial number here by clicking this checkbox here and just started on one incremental one. But the wonderful world of the mobile world is that potentially this solution is going to be split into 3 or 4, and they're going to be offline. And how do you know how do you know it's going to be unique? Well, the way you can do that is by having a calculated value. So we go into our calculation engine here, and one of the calculations under the get function is UUID. So that will give you an extremely, actually came up with the help there, I'll just pause there and you can read it potentially. So it will give a universal unique identifier, which is a nice way of saying a very, 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 very complicated long number. So it's highly unlikely that it's going to be repeated. Certainly in the solutions that you are going to be looking at. Potentially, if you're a bank, you might have to look at maybe a more complicated solution. But for our purposes, this is pretty good. So that's created our ID, so every quote is going to be unique, so that's great. So the next field is maybe the rep's name, which can be text, that's fine. and the date of quote. Let's make that a date field, and again, just to help our guys out on the road, let's just go into the options and click this little checkbox here, which will automatically enter the date for them so they don't have to put in a date. So that helped them out straight away. So let's start by dragging out some these fields onto the layout. So I'm going to shift and click to select two, and you've got some drag options out here. I'll show you this one first. I want them next to each other, so that's not correct. So I can drag them out with label on the left, which is this option here, and the fields on top of each other. So I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to delete them. What I'd quite like is the label on the top, and for them to be next to each other, and put them down the bottom right. Fantastic. So that looks good to me. So let's go and go ahead and have a look at how this is starting to look and get this onto a mobile device straight away. So let's just exit that. That's great. It's not the most amazing solutions to start off with, but let's just quickly see how we can get this onto a mobile. So I'm going to upload this to my server now. So just quickly click on the share button here, upload to FileMaker server. I'm going to set a password. As it's going mobile now, you want to add a little bit of security in there. So it's going to close the solution and upload it to my server. So you can, once you've installed a FileMaker server on some kind of internal on-premise server or with one of our cloud hosting providers, you'll get the IP address, you get the where to put it. Once you put that into FileMaker, username and password, obviously, to upload it, a bit of security there, and that will go and upload to the server, to the FileMaker server, which is software, but it will be sitting on another machine. So great, I'm just going to reopen that. So now it's on the server. I know it's on the server because it's got the name of the file, the name of the solution, and then in brackets the name of the solution, the server. So I know that's now uploaded. Okay, so let's just bring over a nifty little tool called Reflector, which shows my little iPad mini I've got next to me. So I've got FileMaker Go here. Just let me come out of it so you can see. So FileMaker Go is a free download from the App Store, so you can go and grab it right now if you've got an iPhone or an iPad. And then once you open it, you can see recent files, the files that are on the device. You can actually even email a file, a smallish, a file that will go over email onto to the device if you wanted a catalog or something that was offline. Absolutely possible to do that, and you can have that off on the device. The magic really happens when you go to a host and then you share in a multi-user sort of system. So we're going to go over to the host, click on my server there. Just using my mouse pointer to highlight where I'm going, but I'm using my fingers on the actual device. And let's see where it is. So this quote tool final, that was the one we've just built. Let's go into there. You can see I'm being challenged for a username and password. Oops. There you go. And log in. Great. So let's just create a record on here so you can see that the date automatically has gone in. Let's put Mike on the desktop, which wouldn't happen normally, but you can see in real time we're getting that coming over, and I can maybe change that over here just to, whoops, try again. So we can see the data flying between these two devices. So the solution is on an on-premise server in the office. The people using FileMaker Pro can access that information, but of course also the people out on the go with a 4G iPad can also just connect through to that server live, which is great. Okay. So let's look at adding a bit more functionality in here. So of course, these sales reps are going out, they're trying to sell their products, their company's products. Let's bring some of those products in. So we're just going to go to File, Import Records. I'm back in FileMaker Pro here. File, Import Records to File, and I've got an inventory list spreadsheet on the desktop that I can open up. I'm going to create a new table, and we're getting to the what tables mean in 2 seconds. but the one checkbox that's really important is don't import the first record. If I open up that spreadsheet here on the desktop, you can see that the first line in the spreadsheet is the labels for the data. So I want them to come in, and so therefore they're building them up in my FileMaker database, which is great. Okay, so there's 25 coming in. I'm seeing them one at a time here in form view, but I can change over to table view very quickly over here so I can see the whole list, which is great. And the one thing that, of course, you can't put into a spreadsheet very easily is pictures. So I'm just going to come over here and add a new field. Let me just give it a name. And change its type. So at the moment, this is just a slightly different way than the way we were doing it in the field picker. The field type is text. Well, actually, I want it to be a type of that's called container. It's unique. The name is unique to FileMaker, but it's pictures. It's anything that isn't textual. So it could be the signature that you capture on the iPad. It could be a video. PDFs, Word documents, any document you want can go into here, including pictures. So let's push that over. And if I just bring up this folder over here I've got, which is some images in there, you can import these, but I'm just going to manually just drag a few in just for the demo purposes. It's fine. Let's just put a few in there. Disk breaks I was up to. Great. So one more, just for luck. So we've got some images in the database now. So let's make use of this. So we're going to go back to our quote detail form and go into edit layout to create a list of all of those. So I'm going to create a portal, and that's going to go in, and I'll explain what that means. That's going to go into a. I have to create a relationship actually, so let me go through and explain. So this dialog box gives you access to the sort of the database part of FileMaker, which that means the data. So we've got tables here. So I could change that name of that table. It took the name of the file, but I could change that to quotes. So that's going to be the quotes. We've got the inventory list, which is great. And if we go into fields, we've got the again just a slightly different view of the fields in the database, and we could add and change them down here, their types and so on. Just a different way of doing the same job as we've been doing. So there's the two tables. The two, if you're looking at spreadsheet language, the tables are the sheets of data. They're usually around one thing, and the fields are the columns of the data with the labels that go along with it. So that's the switch over between the two, between a database and a spreadsheet. The difference is, of course, with the database is that you've got relationships. You want to relate data. That's what makes it so very powerful, having a database, is that you don't have to repeat yourself. So we've got the quotes and the inventory. So what we want to do is link them up so that we can see all of the inventory on a quote. This is a slightly strange one to begin with, but we're going to do it anyway. So we're going to link up these two ID keys, even though they don't match at all. Let's just double click into this relationship here so that we can see the relationship in more detail. Usually what you would have, one of the very, very used sort of relationship is obviously where one ID matches another, and a customer ID matches the customer ID in another table. For this one, we're going to just use this X symbol here so that we don't care about the relationship. We want all of them. We want to see everything in that relationship or through that relationship. So let's click OK there, and we'll be doing a few more relationships as we go. But this one is just purely to see all of the data. So let's click OK on that, and now sitting on the quotes table on the form, we can see through now to all of the inventories, and we'll see everything. So let's just change this to 3 rows, because we want to give ourselves lots of room to see the picture. So we want to see the picture, the item, description and cost, and I'll rearrange these a little bit. So a portal here repeats, and it repeats up to 3 is the option we've given it, so it would be 3 lines. But it repeats whatever field is in here for as many times as the relationship is showing. So I just want to make that a little bit bigger, or quite a lot bigger. Bring the description down a little bit, maybe have a largest description. The item is great over there, and just moving that over a little bit. You can see the little guides coming up that are helping me, even though you can't see the outlines of objects. It's the blue guides are helping a lot with me positioning this and try and make it look as nice as I can. So we've got a large picture here, and we've got costs. And before I come out, let's just bring up the inspector window, which is on this Apple or Windows I, but you can also get through this button at the top here, I. And we want to go in here and just format this field, which is on this final icon here, data, right down the bottom under formatting, make that currency so that it will show pound symbol, maybe a fixed number of decimals, just to make sure that it's obvious that it's a cost. And let's see how that looks. So exit layout, and up comes the portal. So I'm using my mouse to try and go down. It's not working, so I've forgotten. If I go into layout and I just double click on this portal again, I've forgotten to allow vertical scrolling. And I'm going to do the option when scrolling because, in my opinion, it looks nicer. Let's go out and then have another look. Great. So I can now, browse my inventory very, very quickly. You'll see where this is going in just a few more minutes when we build this up. So at least now the rep can sit in front of a customer, going through the inventory list very, very quickly, seeing a cost and a description and a picture, more importantly. Great. Okay. So let's have a look at the next thing we want to do. So obviously I haven't pointed out, but over here on my iPad, as we've been connected through to the same solution, I haven't had to do anything. I haven't had to publish this or do some kind of compiling or anything like that. I've built this into the file. It's working on the desktop here, and it's also now available on my iPad. I can scroll through that on my iPad directly, which is beautiful. Actually, it feels really nice with the finger going up and down that. Great. Okay. So back to the solution. What else would be great? Well, of course, we need to build up a quote. It's all well and good seeing the inventory, but of course we need a quote. So let's build up a little section on the right-hand side here to build that quote up. So I'm going to use a little tool called a tab control, which will allow me to make use of the space by having, I'm going to be creating two tabs here, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So the first one being quote and the other customer information. So if I OK that, and actually if I just go back in and make those labels stretch along the top there, that's great. Okay, so we've got a quote here, which is fantastic. So let's go on a bit more and see how far we can get. So we want the quote. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need to link up. We're going to need to do a bit more work in the relationship to make that work. So let's go back into that. So file manage database. And we've got the sort of the bits here that are controlling that viewing of all of the products. Well, what we're going to need to do is to have some way of actually having the inventory being pulled in to a table that will hold the instance of the quote. We can't just have two tables. We're going to need to have three, and it'll make sense as I go through. So the first one is I'm just going to duplicate this inventory list. You can have multiple ones, so I'm going to bring that over there. That's fine, but we're going to need to build in a new table. So I'm going to go over to table. Actually, I can do it here. No, sorry. Over to table and create a new table. So I'm going to call this order request. And over to the field. So how am I going to connect this all up? Well, I'm going to need to have an ID from the quote and an ID from the inventory table, and also an ID for itself. So that's the first thing to do, is just create that ID for itself. So the primary key being order request ID, same as we did last time, and just make that calculated value to create a unique ID. Okay, So next one along is going to be the foreign key. I'm not going to talk in great detail about relationships, but something to look up in our FileMaker training series advanced book has a whole chapter around this, and to really give you a lot of detail in depth about how to start this. But just bear with me while I build this up, and then I just change the name of that. So we're going to need to have the inventory ID as a foreign key. So bring that information over. And the same for the quote. And I'm just going to delete that one. That was by mistake. So we've got the ID that for itself, the unique identifier for every order request, and then we're going to be placing the IDs into these foreign key fields to link up the quote, like I said, quote and one inventory. So just while we're here, of course, no quote is complete without a quantity. It could be a number, of course. So how many of each product are you going to buy? So let's stop there and then see how we connect this together. Okay, so this makes a little bit more sense, I think. So the ID, quote ID goes to quote ID, and the inventory ID goes to inventory ID, and you've got this joining table in the middle that will hold all of those different products for the quote. Okay, let's go see how that will look on the form itself. So again, we're going to be using a portal to show this information, display this information. We're going to make it reference that table that we've just created. And I think maybe 5 or even 4 is fine. So what we're going to put on there, so we want to have the ID, of course. Not that one, sorry. We're going to have the inventory ID. We're going to have the quantity, the item name, and the cost of the item. Let's see how that looks. We might have to give ourselves a little room on the on this side, but that's fine. We can do that. Great. So let's see how that looks and how it behaves. So with portals, when you just create them, unless something happens with a script, there's nothing manually you can do with them. They're just view only. So let's make this make it possible through the relationship to create a order. So I'm just going to allow creation of records. That's better. Okay, so let me just bring over the ID into here so it'll make a lot more sense. So I'm just going to bring in the ID of the inventory. So just bring that over there and we'll delete that later. So just so you can sort of see the nuts and bolts underneath. So every product has a unique identifier, just starting at 1 and going up in this case. So a battery is 3. So linking up 3 into the ID field here, or 2, as the case may be, you can see that the different bringing in the code links up to the inventory and displays it within this portal. So we can see for this quote, they want different things. Let me just clean up this a little bit. As you can see, it's needs a little bit of formatting. So if we double click on a field, you can create a label very quickly, and you could just use the text tool, of course. So ID field here. We'll just duplicate over. Quantity over there. The item name, and lastly the cost. probably spend a few more minutes just cleaning that up, but that hopefully will do. Oh yes, that's what I need to do. The item was a bit short, wasn't it? Let's just make that a little bit longer if we can. Great. Okay, so we're kind of getting there. So we're doing it manually at the moment, but we're bringing in an item into this area here, building up a quote, and we can see a cost. What would be great is to maybe see, as we can put in here a quantity, or more than one would be. What would be nice to see a subtotal here, and then maybe a total down the bottom. So let's go see how we do that. So I'm going to go into Manage Database, go into the Order Request table, and create a new field called Subtotal. I'm going to make that a calculation field down here, as we're going to need to calculate that value. So of course it's a pretty easy calculation. It's just quantity times the cost of the item. We're going to have to go into the inventory table, of course, to get that cost, but that's pretty easy, and I want to return that calculation as a number. So that's hopefully all I'm interested in. Let's go and test that one out very quickly and see if that works. Again, the formatting might be needing some work, but let's have a look. Okay, great. So as we go through and give these a different quantities, the subtotal is now calculating. Again, a little bit of formatting would be nice to have, as we did before, have the currency displayed correctly would be nice. And one last thing I saw, this one, just as again a little tip here, within the inspector you can go over to the themes here, and you've got a different style for objects, and the minimal one is the one that the rest of them are using there. So bring them in line. A question mark there because they're too small. I need to create myself a little bit more space. ID field and quantity don't need to be very big, but obviously the cost is getting bigger. Bear with me. There you go. I could spend a bit more time clearing it up, but hopefully you get what I mean, and I'll be showing one I made earlier to clean that up in a minute. So we've got a subtotal, which is fantastic. Let's just move that over. I know I said I wouldn't, but let's see if we can fix those. That's better. Okay, so let's see how we build up from the subtotals to make a total for the quote. So again, we need to go in and create a new field for that. So FileMaker File Manage Database. Over into the order, and this time instead of a calculation, so just the total this time, we're going to use a summary field, just so we've used most of the field types here. We're going to create that. Lots of different options here, averages and max and minimum, but we just need the total of the subtotal. And of course, to actually put it on the form as well. So back into my date picker tool. Oh, and I want to just bring that out of the portal there so it doesn't repeat. So let's just bring that up. And let's see how that looks. Okay, fantastic. So I could format that again, of course, but that's calculating all of these different values to give us a grand total. Okay, so let's move on one, and let's open up one I made earlier. So I'm just going to go over to my server, go open remote, and open up tool 2. It's going to challenge me for a username password. Oh no, not that one. We need to go on one more. I've gone so far just as I was, so let's go on to the third tool. Brilliant. Okay, so we've moved on again, and actually I might have to flip back again, but just so you get the idea, we've moved on in this solution so that we've got a way. Obviously it's been cleaned up a little bit, it looks a lot nicer. Same functionality though, we've got the cost, the subtotals, and a total going on there. We've added in the other part of the tab control, we've added some fields for the customer, of course, which is very useful. And also we've added this lovely little button here on the portal that we had to add manually add in the IDs into this portal. So I can quickly run you through how you would maybe fault find if this wasn't working correctly, but just let's go and add a quote. And if we add an air filter and a car battery, you can see it's adding it in manually. It's doing exactly what we did when I was adding in the IDs. It's just doing that through a script. So let's go off and have a look at the script workspace and see how that's working. So the script workspace, we've only got one script, very simple one. So what we're doing in this case is we're setting a variable, so setting X, or in this case, $inventory ID, with the value from this portal, the ID we've got, so the ID of the air filter, let's say. So we're putting the air filter into there. We're going to an object, which is, we've given the portal a name. We've given the a portal name portal quote, so it's going to that object, the script. It's going to the portal and then going to the last row. You can select different options, but it's going to the last row in that portal, exactly as we were doing. And then it's setting the field, it's putting the value from the ID, the X equals the dollar inventory ID, so whatever the air filter was, I think it was 1, into the field, and then committing the record, which is another way of saving that every time you do it. So it's committing that data into the database, and therefore you're seeing it. So let's step through this quickly with a tool that you get in FileMaker Advanced, which is the script debugger. So let's just bring that up. So script debugger is fantastic. So sort of live, I can click on a script, which I'll show you how to do that in a second, how you attach that up. It tells you which script is coming in, and you can walk through it. So clicking on this button here, it will step into the script, and it will actually go through it very slowly, as if you were doing it manually. So in this case now we're going to the portal and we're going to the last row. So you can see that went blue there. It's going to the last row in that portal. The next one is it's going to set the variable. You won't see that because we haven't shown the field anymore, but it's setting the field so that therefore that product appears, and then we're committing it, which is another word for save. So there you go, that's it in a nutshell. While you're going through that, just I didn't show you, as you're going through as well, you can bring up the data viewer, which is another dialog box here. But this one holds all the variables, the X equals, the ones that were the dollar, which you can't see them normally, but as you go through, let me bring that down so you can see it. Bring it over to the side. As you can see, as it goes through, those values will change if they're different. Let me choose a different, just quickly choose the alternator, which is probably 2, and hopefully you'll see a different value. There you go. So the ID for alternator is 2. Okay. So I hope that hope that was helpful, just seeing the script debugger very quickly. But let's go in and show you how you add the script in here. So I'm going to delete that out. So we're using a button. Very simply drawing a button object onto the form where you want it to be. You can add some text, whatever you want that to be. Maybe add is better is fine. You can also just have an image or an image with the text. So in this case, maybe a little add button is quite nice. You can make that add a symbol bigger or smaller. You can change the look, feel, and the color, which we'll do in a minute. But the most important thing, of course, is the action that's going to perform, which in this case is a script. We've already written the script. So we can select that script, hook it up, and I'm just going to go into the inspector to change its color like I promised. So you've got several sort of stock ones here, but of course you can go in and change the color as you see fit. Red's a bit It's a bit aggressive, isn't it? So maybe a green add button. Okay, so saving that out, and we can go in and add those as we wish. Okay, so let's just go over just to make sure this is all the same. So this is the last solution we were looking at. Oops. Just go back to the Launch Center on FileMaker Go. And if we go over to the host, we can see that quote tool 3 is the one that we're in here. And we can go into that solution after being challenged with a username and password. And that same functionality is there. We can add a quote, see customer details, and so on. So it's exactly the same on the iPad on your solution, ready to go. Okay, so I've got a final solution here. Again, I'm being challenged. And again, a bit more work has been done here that's making it really useful. And again, this could be on the iPad, of course. I'm just showing it in FileMaker Go. So we've included a little bit of a filtering system here. Of course, there was a lot of products. So we can filter now to battery, let's say, and get to the batteries, only the batteries, and start adding them in. And the other part that we've done is added a new script and a new layout, which is the quoting information. So the information is exactly the same as we were filling out in these two sections here. But then for the quote to be PDF'd and for it to work, it can be a manual, just as simple as saving as a PDF. You can do it manually. But within a script step, you want the FileMaker to go here very quickly, grab a PDF of this of the invoice, and then to email it out. So we've added in a script up here as well, which is emailing the quote. So let me just walk you through this one very quickly. We're setting a variable of the actual quote ID. We're going to the layout, which is the one I've just shown you here. We're doing a find just to make sure we're on exactly the right quote. We're setting up some variables here of building up a file name for the PDF. In this case, we're doing the quote ID and then the current date .pdf. So we're just doing a simple so that could be whatever you want, the customer name, quote 3, whatever file name you want to give it. We're then saying that we're going to where we're going to save it, the command to save records as PDF with that path ID. Go back to the original section, and then a very simple one-line send email, and this works on the desktop and iPads to send that quote and attach the PDF. So you could go in here and see how it works. But the quote email, which is just the email field that you've put in for the customer, a little bit of text of hi, thanks. And the path, the attached file, is the path to the PDF. Like I say, that works on the iPad and the desktop. So if we I'll just show that functionality very quickly. So I can go here and get that quote, bring it up. It opens up into your mail client on both. So there's a nice little preview here with some text already pre-populated, and you can send it off right while you're with your customer in that sales environment. Okay, so let's just go back to the keynote and wrap up. Hopefully, we've answered some of those real issues that people were having with their business. We've enabled them to go mobile, obviously, but we've solved some real problems where they've got real-time information when and where they want it. That inventory list can be in real time, so they're seeing prices and stock information up to date, which is really helping the sales rep and the customer, of course. It's really aligning with the business needs. They were having a lot of problems and they want to grow. They need to get these processes and be as efficient as they can while being mobile, and I think we've achieved that. And a better customer experience. I mean, how much better is it to sit down with the customer with a lovely little application, visually appealing, professional, and you're getting the job while you're sitting there with them, rather than saying, I'll get back to you in 2 days when I get back to the office. Just a much better customer experience, of course. I hope you agree. So this is where we've come from. Spreadsheets, filling out paper forms, loads of mistakes, inefficient processes, and hopefully we've solved all of their. We've solved that, and hopefully I've demonstrated that to you. So I'd like to share a quote from another one of our customers that I really love, especially as it's involving two of my passions. So George Page is the owner, cheesemaker of a company called Seabreeze Farm. They have farm animals as well as a restaurant, and a really amazing company. So he was struggling, of course, with his data, and he now is using FileMaker to track and understand daily production levels of the cows in his dairy operation. He's got a wine cellar and produces his own wine, and he's using FileMaker Go to replace clipboards. It's used for entering lots of information about the wine, the alcohol levels, and so on, historical wine data. He's using his butcher shop to track orders for customers, point of sale system in the restaurant. It's really has transformed his business amazingly. He's really taking advantage of the platform. And this is his quote that he said, I was able by myself to create a custom solution for the iPad that our employees generally want to use. So a great story, and we've got loads of other really lovely customer stories as well as videos on our website. So please go and have a look and have a look to see if there's anything that's calling to you, whether in your sector or just the functionality. So I hope that was useful. If you've not joined our community forum, please do. There's a lot of really helpful people out there. The FileMaker community are generally a really, really nice bunch of people, very helpful. I have the pleasure of going to our big conference in America and meeting a lot of these people, and they really, really fall over each other to help each other out. So get some tips from the experts there, collaborate with other developers, and share your expertise and have a look at other stuff there. So there's also, of course, technical briefs. There's how-tos into lots of different parts of the FileMaker platform to help you gain some new knowledge and experience. And yeah, just a great place to go and join and have a look. So hopefully you know all this, but you can go to FileMaker to the App Store to get FileMaker Go. That's free to download to use locally on the iPad. You can go and download a copy of FileMaker Pro to have a play, start your journey building your custom app. And of course, as you're here today, you know about our seminars and other learning resources, and those are the links there.